guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mariah, and here on my channel I post lifestyle, university and physiotherapy related content. So if you're interested in that, make sure you subscribe. Don't forget to put up so now let's say video. Today I want to share with you some highlights from my placements. Okay, so sit down, strap in, because this is gonna be a long video. Don't know how long we're talking, so I gotta pick up my notebook. Literally from placement day one, I've been writing down at least 2 to 3 memorable moments from that placement. And I thought, hey, I'll share it with you guys now. And before some of you go, you can't share certain details. They are not specific, okay, like patient specific, you cannot be identifiable. Anyway, let's get into it. So on my first placement, I did TNO 4 weeks. And on that placement, I typically saw people with knee or hip replacements. Now, as that being my first placement, there was a lot of things that I didn't know going in, but hey. Anyway, so my first memorable moment is I wrote experiencing my first vasovagal, so a faint. The patient, I remember it was funny, not funny necessarily, yeah, well, after it was funny, because the patient, we were like, okay, you know, it's like day 2 or whatever of your surgery, or day 1 of your surgery, let's get you up and walking. Patient was talking, I was like, yeah, I can't wait to walk. Fainted, came back round and was like, oh yeah, so like, how'd I do? And we're all looking at him like, mate, you fainted, mate. Like, that was, I'd say, one of my most memorable moments. But in terms of actually like looking into detail, I put that like, I noticed the signs of, you know, the patient like stopped talking, went like kind of palish, and it was like, ah, crap, like we need to call for help. Another moment, I wrote, having a patient that I worked with independently and then discharged home recognize me when they returned for their outpatient appointment. Like, I remember that moment where I came down, I think, for lunch to outpatients. I came down to outpatients for my lunchtime, and then like this, like I'll have someone go, Mariah, and I'm like, thinking, I'm not from around here, so who's calling my name? And I'm like, oh my god, this patient looks so good. Because at that point, I think I saw them my first week of my placement, maybe my early second week. And this was like my last week or whatever, I'd seen them come in, and I was like, wow, like, you're doing well. And they're like, yeah, look, I can do this and do that now. Like, it made me feel like really proud to like see them come from like coming in for surgery to get that point. And I put a patient singing my praise to their wife about the care provided to them over their extended stay due to complications. I remember that exactly. Like, if I think back to my favourite patient on that placement, it would have to be that patient. Just based on the fact that, like I said, they had like some complications, which meant that we couldn't discharge them as easily as we were able to discharge other patients. And I built a bond with that patient in terms of like, you know, I'd be like, oh, you know, if they slept bad, I'll let them have a little extra sleep. Like, we'd still do the therapy. I wouldn't let them get away with not doing any therapy, but like, I'd be a little bit more understandable. Be like, oh, okay, you've not really slept in this environment. I know you're not gonna get a lot of sleep in hospital. Everybody knows that. But yeah, I was just very like nice about it, and I didn't like. I pushed, but not to the point like of breaking point. You know what I mean? And like they were very appreciative of it, so they told their wife about it, and their wife was like singing my praise as well, which was like really, really sweet. So, moving on to my second placement. So that was my Opal placement, where I spent 6 weeks, mostly on AMU, but I spent time in different areas as well, like such as A&E, the rehab unit, and some time with the neuro OTs. Anyway, my first memorable moment I put down was learning about polymyositis, and so it's a condition that I learned about and never seen before, and following the patient through that journey. So that's pretty interesting. Because I think most placements I've been on, I've not been in a case where I've seen, well, before that point, I've never experienced something where a case has popped up that even the senior or the qualified person has not experienced this situation before, or like not seen this case before. So we're learning together, and that was like a great experience for me to feel like, okay, like, you know, I can't be expected to know it all. Like, I can be qualified and there's a lot of things I'm not gonna know. So that was nice. Another one from that placement, I put one thing, this is something I observed on this placement. I think this was from when I was on the rehab unit, that the elderly patients had more drive than the younger patients to get up and moving. And I found myself often telling the older patients to slow down. And before you jump on me, it was mostly because of like blood pressure issues where I told them they had to slow down. But I thought it was just really interesting because I thought it would be more like the other way around, with like the younger patients wanting to get up and moving so they can go home or go back to their day-to-day independent life or whatever. I didn't necessarily expect the older people to just sit there and not want to do anything, but I was just very their drive was very admirable basically. Another thing I put down from that placement, just like, okay, this is a little sad, but like, sorry, who's buzzing me? Like, waiting for a call for something, but this is annoying. Anyway, one I put was experiencing like the first time I'd seen a patient and a family disagree on a situation, on like whether it be like discharge planning or disagree on like a certain form of treatment. Like, obviously we're there to do what the patient desires, and obviously there's going to be some conditions, like stock conditions, some situations where a patient is unable to give their opinion, and so then the next of kin steps in and gives their opinion because the patient doesn't have capacity. But it was like my first time experiencing like where they didn't agree with each other, and I was kind of like, I feel like obviously you shouldn't step in those situations unless absolutely must, but like it was just more of a, I don't know, I felt kind of bad for the patient because I was like, I feel bad because I know what you want, but it doesn't sound like they're going to give you a say, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was a sad one. Moving on, up and up from here. Okay, yeah. How's it go? So now moving on to my mental health placement, I put down working with a patient who had poor mobility and used a wheelchair. So like had poor mobility, used a wheelchair, was like they were able to like, not necessarily walk, but like even with a walking aid, like a frame and like assistance or two. I can't remember. I think they were, but like it was just basically what I was trying to say with this one. There was this one patient where like when you look at them, you wouldn't think they'd be able to do the things that I witness them to do. So like this patient spent most of the time in like the wheelchair, but they were able to like transfer and stuff. But then when they're in the swimming pool, you wouldn't believe this person was in a wheelchair or something like that. Like he was just very, I don't know, I can't really explain it because I don't want to give too many details away because it'd be too obvious. Yeah, basically it was just like, I was like, wow, just how the difference in someone's presentation when they're doing something they enjoy, basically, is what I was driving at with that one. Another one I put, this one patient touched my heart. So there's this one patient, again, I think they were my favourite patient. I don't know if we're allowed favourites, but I have favourites. Like, I don't make it too obvious, but like, inside, that one was my favourite. There was this one patient who had dementia, and I remember this one time where they like read that, like I was from the University of Birmingham, and like I think they had like a family member or something like that went to the University of Birmingham, and I don't know whether that family member was still around, that you catch my drift for that one, but they started crying and like holding my hand, and I was like, oh my god, I swear it could have broke me. Like it was emotional that moment. I was like, don't you cry, Mariah, don't you dare cry. But like, yeah, that moment was an emotional one because it did bring a tear to my eye, but it was like really sweet. Moving on from that one, this was funny. This one patient just had it out for me. This one patient, he was not a fan of me. It was even, and it was like, it wasn't like I did him anything. It was literally just, I'd be like, hi, and he'd be like, I'm like, okay. Okay. Session must go on. Get to the point like the patient tried to shove me over and stuff. That was a memorable moment. Like it was funny. I found it funny mostly because when the patient would be insulting me, they'd be insulting me about things that had no association to me. Because I'd be like, okay, like yeah, all right, cool. It's like, for example, someone being like, I'm trying to think of something way off. Okay, it's like someone saying to me, "You blonde this," and I'm like, never been blonde in my life, but okay, thank you. Like, it was like really funny to me. I like it. Yeah, it's a bit weird. And I also put down how welcoming and great the team were, and that they did not make me feel like a student, and I loved it. I put that down. Now, when my one for the pediatric placement, so that was my 4th placement, I just put in all caps, little babies! Babies were adorable. Like, there was one kid that I was just like, oh, so cute, because he did nothing but play with my stethoscope, and it was absolutely adorable. But my highlight, my memorable moment would have to be watching that surgery. It was a complex surgery. I watched it was a bilateral femoral osteotomy, patella tendon shortening, and muscle lengthening. So a complex surgery, and something that I was like, this is not an experience you're going to get every day. So I was very happy to have seen something like that. The next thing for my pediatric placement, I would say, was performing suctioning. And before that placement, I dreaded suctioning. Not just by the sight of suctioning, because like, if you don't know, physio is when you like suction someone, you got to look at the mucus, the sputum that you got. You got to be like, oh, you know, white, creamy, or thick, watery, loose, blah 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 blah. The whole shebang. You got to describe it, and like, I could barely even look at it. So for me, I was like, and like the sound of it, I was like, like for the longest point in time. But that placement, by doing it over and over, actually really helped me get accustomed to the sound. Like, I just found ways to distract myself that I wouldn't be like about it, because it was very much like, that's what I could say about it. That's how I felt about suctioning for the longest period of time. Another one, I discovered that I need to be put myself in a position where I have to be willing to let my educator help me, in terms of like, I'm closed off in certain areas where I'm like, that's none of your business. Like, that's kind of how I'm like, it's none of your business. I don't know you like that. Like, and I feel like sometimes the annoying thing about having short placements, I mean, that placement was 5 weeks. The annoying thing about having like a glimpse of time with someone is that obviously this person's going to judge you and mark you on that glimpse of time they had with you, but they don't know you in that sense. So it's like, after that, I mean, even before that, like, I made an effort to always come in like showing who I am immediately, but at that time I was dealing with a lot of stuff as well. So when like someone's digging and trying to get to know, I'm more of a, like a, I can't really describe it, like, I'm a person where either we naturally click or we don't, or we naturally, like, you know, do this or that, and I'm like, if you want to get to know me, it usually takes time. It's not usually an immediate thing, and I feel like with placements, sometimes it puts you in a position where they need to get to know you immediately, and I'm kind of just like, if I'm dealing with other things or I'm kind of not in the mood with that, I'm like, leave me alone. Like, I can close off. I'm like, you're getting too close, shut down, bye bye. Like, it's kind of how I can be, and like, I understand it can be perceived as standoffish for some people, but for me, I'm kind of just like, like, not in a rude way. It's like, it's just like, can we easy now, like that. So I realized that sometimes I can come up as that, and like, sometimes, you know, people want me to be more open, but I can't just open up on command, and like, it's important to obviously realize that I can't open up on command, but also to voice that I'm not a person who opens up on command. I'm not sure if I explained that correctly, but yeah. And then another thing I put down for my, well, this is my urgent care placement, I put down, seeing a case of gangrene was my most memorable moment. That's what I'm going to say. If you don't know what gangrene is, look it up. It wasn't necessarily the sight of it, it was more like, one thing, this is one thing, it's not completely off topic. One thing I must say, that uni or just life never told people going in healthcare, it's not what you're going to see that may shock you, it's what you smell that may shock you. Because like, obviously open wounds have a smell, and it's like, no judgment to the patient or whatever like that, like none of that, like, no judgment to the individual, it's just more like, I just didn't expect certain things. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Like, there was certain things that I'm like, raw, okay, like, and now I know, I'm like, okay, cool, gone. But it's like, it would have been nice to have a heads up. So yeah, that's me on that one. That's what I'm gonna say. It's just like, wow. Like, I didn't realize the severity of, I mean, I knew what gangrene was and like necrosis and all that kind of stuff. I just didn't realize the severity of how far it can go. I believe it's that. And another thing I put from my urgent care placement was feeling comfortable there from day 1 or 2. Others acknowledging my presence and helping me get right in and fit right in and feel like I'm playing a part and I'm not just a spare piece of the team. I put that there for my urgent care placement. And I didn't write anything for my respiratory placement because it's not that long since I finished it. But I put becoming more comfortable with ITU. ITU, when I found out I was going to be in ITU, I spent some time on HDU in my pediatric placement and I wasn't a fan. It's because of like if it's not the wires, it's the noises of the monitors making noise, and it was just a lot of overwhelming to my senses. So when I heard I was going on ITU, I was a bit like, I'm grateful for the experience, but I don't know if I'm gonna like it. And by the end of that placement, like, so much changed. I was comfortable being on there. You know, I think with time and knowing what things were and taking the time to learn about like certain either conditions or like certain medications or like why this is here, why this does that, it actually made it less daunting. Sorry, phone rang. Anyway, where was I? I was saying my favourite memorable moment for my last placement. So nearly close to the end. So most memorable moment for again, last placement, obviously I said the ITU thing. Another thing I would say memorable moment was like, watching the removal of a tracheostomy, even though that was like a few minutes, like it was still something that I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And like just watching tracheostomy sessions when they like take the cuff down and like they put a speaking valve in so the person can talk. It was just very interesting to like experience. And that was like my memorable moment. Another moment that was my memorable moment again. Favorite patient. When I was leaving, because like, the patient had been there pretty much my whole placement, and I was like, bye, like, I wish you all the best, like, it's my last day, so I thought I'd say, let you know, kind of thing, like, it's been great managing you, like, managing your case, etc., blah, blah, blah. And they were like, oh, thank you for everything. And then they're like, oh, you're not gonna make a great physio because you are a great physio and all that. And I was like, ah! But yeah, it was a lovely way to end my student placement experiences. And with that being said, I'm going to end this video and I'll catch you guys in another one. So if you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye guys!